Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris McKean.
I'm Andy Kiner.
We're all about cross-country racing, and typically it starts with 10 seconds.
But not in Iowa. In Iowa, it starts with hands-on helmets.
Welcome, buddy. Feels like these podcasts are coming quicker and quicker each week.
That just means we're having more fun with it.
More fun. We're doing a lot behind the scenes. Get everything ready for the next one.
Yeah. Again, just like last week, I'm excited because it just seems like this little mini series we're doing is getting better and better every episode as far as looking forward to it and what we're going to be talking about, so.
Yeah. Good. Got a heck of a podcast tonight. All about 4 rubber things that keep our quads up and moving, right?
Yep. I've had so many people tell me a lot of people think it's the number one thing. I'm actually excited to see what the guests say tonight, but yeah, it's the only thing between you and the ground.
Yep.
The only thing touching the ground. So,
so a couple housekeeping items I kind of want to throw out there, and we'll talk a reminder again. The 2025 questionnaires are out there, so they're off links off the Facebook page. Less than 4 days left to vote on the rule changes for both UTVs and ATVs. So get out there, register, and let your voice be heard and make it count.
I just talked to a couple people today and said they had to get their questionnaires done. They brought it up to me, so I know people's thinking about it. So that's good. Yep. Both of them actually said they really appreciated what you had done last year as far as that really helped them on. Mm-hmm. It's not actually a big time because, people are up there talking, having fun anyway, but just knowing that you've got to ride it out, and everything, that really helped out a lot. So that was good to hear.
Yep. I think it's a better process for all those involved.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So without further ado, let's bring on our returning guest, Matt Lindle. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me again.
See, I was right. Chris kept trying to say he wanted to bet me that you would have shaved this time.
Oh, shit.
I said, no. I said, we guarantee you he wouldn't have shaved. So
it's been a lot of years since I've been clean shaved.
Should have taken the under. So, yeah, thanks for joining us again, Matt. I mean, we got a lot of comments some good feedback on your advice that you've shared. Kind of like a returning guest this week again. So thanks for coming back on with us.
Yeah, no problem at all. I enjoyed it last week, and hopefully people gained a little perspective that took me a lot of years to gain. I'm hoping fast-tracked them a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, we had great conversations about the machine, not only for adults, but I think kids as well. Choosing the right machine, and not only choosing the machine, but actually get to know what the machine does. So, a lot of important information shared.
A lot of different perspectives too, Everybody kind of looked at, I got last week when we did this, at the end, after we learned everything from Matt and we got the other 4 on here, do you notice how everybody had, I wouldn't say it's a different perspective, but as their own perspective? That's how I should say it. But It seemed like everybody agreed at the very end on everything. They came to the same conclusion, so
yeah.
Number
I think
one
we took
is what you got.
We took different streets to get to the same building in the end is what I think. I mean, it was neat to see that everybody kind of agreed in the end, just had a little different way of getting there maybe.
Exactly. Yep. So, and I think Chris is wrong again. I want to point that out is Matt's not really a guest on here. You're kind of like the host on here for this series. So once again, I'm not putting you down. I want you to understand that you're the big guy here, Matt. So just understand this. So.
So we're playing good cop, bad cop. Is that what's going on here?
I'm just playing along. I'm going off your lead, bud.
I'm not much of a host. All I do is get the link from Chris and press the button and sit here and try and look pretty.
Well, tonight we're going to pick your brain on tires, obviously. I've had so many people over the years. We've been doing this series for 21 years and raced a little bit before that, but it's funny you hear all this stuff, and that's typically the number one thing people talk about, and whether it be each race or it be leading up to the races or, over the winter, it seems like tires is always like when they're changing something or doing this or what did I do? It's either I got another new front tire, I got a pair, I got this, but it seems like that conversations of what we're doing moving forward or currently, it's always based around tires. And then we take the next step.
Yeah. Like you guys said, they're pretty valuable. They are the only thing connecting you to whatever terrain you're riding. So yeah, I think they're very important, and there are definitely better and worse choices in my opinion, and especially for the terrain. I feel like the terrain plays a big factor in that, and what style of track you're on.
And I'm really glad you brought that up first, and that's why you're the host tonight, Matt. But talking about different terrains, and we're going to bring, well, before I even finish this, why don't we bring our other guest on for tonight and get him involved in this too, because he'll have as much info on something like this as with Matt, a lot more than Chris and I. So
yeah.
And then I'll ask the question.
I don't know how much he'll have. He's pretty new to the racing thing, so I don't know how much info he's going to have, but we'll try.
All right. So without further ado, some people call him the Gator. We'll call him, real name is Adam, but I think Andy likes to call him Mike tonight. So without further ado, welcome.
Hello. I am here to wreck everything.
Oh, shoot.
Oh,
Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's really cool. Anytime I get a chance to do stuff like this, it's definitely fun. And this is going to be more interesting than the other ones I've done because it's a little more like, from what Andy was telling me, a little bit more informative, a little more techie than what I'm used to doing. So I'm curious to see what kind of questions you got wrapped up in the Midwest mind.
did Andy actually use the word techie?
No, I put that in there. I figured I'd throw a big word in at him.
You don't like it because I keep having to fix some of the tech stuff. And then, I'm really working on keeping Chris on time, and stuff, just like in the races. So,
yeah,
that's why we got started on time tonight. So,
yeah, I'm an hour in front of you guys, so I guess I'm winning.
Well, Adam, thank you very much for coming on. And I want to make sure everybody understands this too, is tonight was talking about tires. And this is our mini series basically based around 100% based around whether or not someone's just getting into the sport of cross country ATV racing, or if they've been in, they could be a youth rider on his 3rd year, 5th year, whatever. It could be a guy that's been in it for 4, 5, 10 years. I still think the knowledge that Matt and you have, and we're breaking this down to 8 different shows for just focus. We could talk for 3 hours about tires. I know you could, for sure, no doubt about it, but I want to give props to you too, because we reached out to some companies. Number one, Ober has a contingency with us right now. They're the only, I want to make this very clear, they are the only company in the industry right now doing tires that has a contingency with the Iowa ATV Hare Scramble Series. And I think we're going to hear that's very huge, for the grassroots people. I mean, that's huge. So, but with that being said, when I reached out to your I don't call him boss or big dog or whatever,
but my friend.
Yeah. But Bruce, obviously we reached out to have Bruce here, and he couldn't be here because he's out in California getting ready for King of Hammers. I know he kind of lives out there for about a month and stuff, but his exact words to me on text was, the only person I trust to go on there outside of myself is Adam McGill. So I know my first call to you accepted. I'm sure he might have reached out too, but definitely want to thank you for coming on with us and tackling this. And like you said, it's probably different than some other ones because we're not here to talk about every little tiny thing. It's to stay focused on the tires and trying to help that prospective racer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely really appreciate you invite me, and it's awesome to know that being around as long as I have for him to put that trust in me. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. So I don't know how long this is going to be. It might get cut short. we never know. But it's definitely really cool to have that relationship with a guy like that, and he's definitely the dude that's making it happen right now. There's a reason he's never home. It's because he supports the brand as much as I support the brand.
That's very cool. And I will tell you on a side note, Adam, as soon as I found this out, I did get a hold of Chris and let him know. And I told him that same story. He didn't believe it when I said that, he trusted you.
I know, right?
On the company. I was like, dude, that's what he told me. I'm telling you. So
I don't know. I think we're starting to all be on the same page here. You're starting to make things up and not remembering it, Andy. So maybe we should find a new guy here, right? Maybe I'm the new guy.
There you go.
It's kind of like the same boat, of Tracy trusting you to do something, Andy, like order something for a race related. No, it won't happen.
Somehow it always does, though, don't it? So I'm going to back up a little bit, Adam. I don't know if you heard us, but I had a question. I want to make sure I ask this before we get into your specific tire, okay? Because sometimes, I know, and I had a big waking up to this when we started the AXCC there a couple years ago. Just to put it on, the set of tires I have on my machine right now, my 2001 Honda, are the exact same set of tires I put on there in 2008. Did you hear that? Since 2008. And so I talk about how these tires last, and they're worn down pretty good right now. But half of that life expectancy of them was gone when I left the Iowa golden, the black dirt that's just gold dust, And when I started going places like Tennessee and Texas and Oklahoma and Ohio, oh my gosh, that terrain is completely different on your tires. Mine went from looking like really good, even though they're a couple years old, to I got 10 years worth of wear out of them in like 8 races, Yeah. And that's just working. That's a utility working. So for you two tonight, that's one thing I would like to speak, because obviously Matt's traveled everywhere as well, but he's right here where the good black dirt is at last, there's no bottom to it. And you're out in West Virginia, correct?
Yeah.
So the trains couldn't be more different. And you two seen all the trains that you race with around the country. So I don't think there's probably 2 better guys in the world that we could ask to get, your perspectives on these tires. So keep that in mind when we're talking tonight, Chris, and everything, that how different it is with the rocks and the dirt and everything. And when these two are talking about the tires, it's just like, once again, like we talked last week, Matt, with everybody, you had a perfect example. What'd you say? Took the same different streets to get to the same address.
Yep.
It's just kind of the same way here, I think. So, but just keep that in mind when we start talking about this. I'd love to hear your perspectives on that, each of you. But Matt, or not Matt, I'm sorry. Adam, over tires. I honestly first started hearing about those when you got on the bike. That was truly the first time that I had honestly ever heard. Now, we're in the Midwest, where the flyover state, so we don't get all the news front page, but
it's all by carrier pigeon.
Right. That was a big deal, though, when you took that over and went to them. And I say that you kind of introduced it to a lot of us. And I don't know, Matt, maybe you've heard about them before, but when
Adam started running them,
came out, really?
Yeah, I got a stint. I have a set now. I own a set. Believe it or not.
Really?
Ride red, nice. Baby. Oh my
they're not
God.
on a they're not on a TRX.
Oh, they're not.
No, they're on my Talon.
Okay, close enough. Still red.
So it's still red for sure.
Northern and southern. I know that I might be getting off subject, but you talk about tires wearing when you got out of the great black dirt or whatever. Do you know that tires in the South wear quicker than the tires in the North? And you want to know why?
It's
because they grind up shells and put shell in the blacktop as filler, and it tears up the tires more. Little useless knowledge that I learned, but not a big deal.
Really? Huh.
Mm-hmm. The
Isn't
blacktop and the concrete stuff, or the blacktop down there, is more abrasive than what it is up here because we don't have shells that we put in our blacktop to make it hold together. That's what I heard. Whether or not it's true or not, it's another story, but that's what I heard.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Huh.
So
So I'm going to turn this over to you two, really. And Adam, I'd like for you just to really kind of catch us up to speed on what got you, number one, before we get to the actual tires, what got you to come over to Ober Tires? And then just kind of tell us about your relationship and your take on Ober Tires start out with.
So I've been racing a long time, and everybody knows that. And I've ran a lot of product. A lot of companies have supported me in my journeys, and obviously I'm very thankful for that. But Ober came in, it was my last year with CST, and I want to say it was 17, 18, somewhere in there. I was approached by a guy that I have worked with in years past, and it was just it was weird. I haven't heard from this person in a long time, and I get a phone call, and so I answer it, and it's obviously like, hey, what the hell you doing, blah, blah, blah. And he says, Adam, I want to ask you something. And I said, okay. He goes, would you test something for me? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't really ride side-by-sides, but sure. He goes, I want you to test an ATV tire. And I was like, okay. Well, if I do this, that I can't, there's no pictures, there's no talking about it. I can do it for you, yes, privately. And so when we first got the first batch, and I'll never forget this, it was, Memorial Day, Labor Day, something like that. And they flew up, right? And we got, I think it was 6 different sets that they sent up. And now, mind you, when they make the tire, they make it, and the mold is the mold, right? The mold's the expensive part. So at that time, the molds were like $10,000 to make. So just one rear in a 2011 9, that mold is $10,000 at that time. And if you want a 2211 9, that's another $10,000. And if you want like an 8, that's another $10,000. You see what I'm saying? So like every mold is $10K, right? So we had a front and a rear set to test in a 20 and a 21, a normal XC. And then they also had an MX set at the time they sent up. And they sent them up, and they were all on wheels ready to go, right? And I remember we got out there, and it was, Bruce wasn't even there at the time. It was me, another kid, because they needed pictures. So I had him on a bike to take pictures and stuff like that for their catalogs and things. And we tested the tires. And I remember them not having service. We had no service where we was at. Somehow, one of the engineers there got service and called out and was screaming at the other engineers in China. Now, mind you, I forget the time change. It's like 14, 15, 18 hours or something like that. And just ripping his ass because something was wrong with the tire. So, like, I learned a lot that year with the shape and everything. So once the mold is made, we can do anything we want with the tire constructive, right? You want more bead in it. You want more sidewall. You want softer compound. You want less, right? But the mold does not change. So when I first got with them, it was definitely rough in a sense of like, I don't know if I can win on these things. And we went back and forth and back and forth. I think this went on clear to, October, November. And I remember I was coming back, and I can't remember where I was coming back from, but I was coming back in the truck, and they sent me a contract. And at first it was just talking, right? We was just talking, developing a tire, and we got something. I said, yeah, I can win on these. And that's kind of how the relationship started. Now, mind you, we've had some rocky growing pains, right, between distributors and shipping and warehouse because we had nothing. I mean, like there wasn't, lack of a better word, there wasn't shit here for Obor, right? So it was like, okay, now how do we get them in people's hands, right? So we start advertising them, right? We start advertising them by me racing and promoting and talking about them. Well, then it's like, okay, now we have interest. How do I get these to people? So what I was doing at that time was I was giving samples out to people and it was getting people hooked. So I think it was another year or so went by. They ended up finding the facility, and they got the facility that they have now, which is a huge warehouse in Georgia, and it's just outside of Atlanta, and that's where they house and store all the stuff. And it was a little less than a year. They brought Bruce on, and I've dealt with Bruce with other companies as well. So it's like, I've got a guy that I've dealt with years past. I got Bruce, which I've dealt with in years past. I've got engineers that I have dealt with in years past. So by the time it was all said and done and we got off the ground, there was 9 people that came over from other brands that I've worked with throughout my career that came into Obor in-house and started developing what you see now, which is the Advent. We have the new Kraken. We have, an MX tire, which is obviously a youth tire. We have the Lynx, the Rock Monster. We've got the new sand tire they just come out with. And I mean, these guys are pushing hard in an industry where a lot of people are backing away. And I'm very proud to say that they're coming at it head on.
Very cool. That's a cool background there. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
When is the Gator coming out?
What do you mean coming out? What do you mean coming out? I'm a little lost in that context.
Oh, you kind of took that. Oh, yes. That's something Chris would have done. I'm sorry.
But I could tell you that it wasn't. I mean, there's been a lot of mistakes. There has been, but there's also been a lot of success. Like you said, Matt, you bought or got a set, or however you acquired a set for your Talon, right? I mean, I'm heavily involved with like the forums and being on social media, right? I try not to let it overtake my life, but most of the 250Rs I see have an Obor on them of some kind, so it's like they support the Gator and they support the brand, and it shows because they're still supporting IATV HSS, which means that they want to grow with people from start to finish. They're not pulling out anytime soon. They've got the pedal down right now. And that's why Bruce isn't here. He's pedal down, making stuff happen.
I will give you that. Every time I've called him, there's times where I'm like, gosh, is he like ignoring me? And then you find out he's been out there for like 3 or 4 weeks, but the guy always returns a call. It may be a little bit, but that's kind of like driving by and seeing that restaurant and, I'm going to stop and eat. There's nobody here, but across the street it's completely full. Now, which one do I go to? Dude, and that's kind of what I get from him.
Yeah, he's he's busy. I get that he's busy, and he travels, and when he's at home, he doesn't want to probably really do much because he's gone all the time. But I can tell you that there's been days or even weeks where I haven't heard nothing, and then he'll get back to me, and it's taken care of. So It's really cool to have a guy that I've worked with in the past. Now they're with me on this journey. And it's like, I mean, there's a whole team behind us, right? But it's like, it's me and him. Like, we're like the dudes, right? Like, I came in and we had a handful of guys that started. They brought him in and they said that he would be a great fit. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's blow this thing out of the water. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's, there's a reason I've been sticking around so long. It's because I enjoy it. I like where I'm at, man. I like the guys. I like the team. And when was the last time somebody made a new ATV tire?
That's what I was thinking. The whole time you were talking, that's all I could think of. It is really neat that somebody's actually coming into that market now and not leaving the market. And that's why I spent my own hard-earned money on them. I used to have a contract with another company, obviously a competitor, but I don't anymore because I've been out of the business a while, and I still have their tires. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to try them. I wanted to see what it was all about. And I mean, it all started from seeing you run them and then just thinking that same thing. It's like, if they're supporting the sport that I love, I'll support them. That's kind of my mentality for everything. It's always been that way. So that's why I got myself a set.
Yeah. And that to me it speaks volume because you're passionate about it. I've known you since you were pooping green, I'm sure. Right. But it speaks volume to have like guys that know, right? Like I still spend, it's not like, yeah, I make a living at this, but I'm still spending money doing things, right? And to know that somebody that isn't really chasing it full time is still going out and buying a product because he heard about hype about it, dude, we're moving in the right direction. And like you said, Andy, they're supporting your series with a contingency program, right? You know, they're supporting, I know other series, and I'm not sure, I haven't got the list this year because I know there's still some things they're working out, but I know they supported series last year where people could collect, you know, contingency, and it's on a sport or a series that everybody with contracts now is like, oh, it's so rough or all this. Dude, they don't seem to be backing down, which to me is awesome because, I mean, I'm sure you was there, Andy, in 2008, 7, 9, when it was like the heyday, right? I would call that the heyday.
Mhm.
And then it shit the bed. Like, bam. I remember I woke up and I had no job. I had nothing, right? I was 19 years old working at a dealership for $5 an hour to a factory rider, and was all over the world and all over the country and having all these opportunities. And then all of a sudden it was like the rug was gone. Now it's like, what do I do? So, and to have a company that doesn't seem to, they are phased in a way, right? But for the most part, it doesn't seem to be changing. And which that to me tells me they're very confident in their brand, and guys like, you know, Matt buying the tires. I mean, people are going to buy them because they know that they're good. One, there's a lot of hype and they're making product, and two, they're obviously doing something right because people are buying the tire.
Yep. We had I would call it a unique situation in our series, Adam, with one of our riders. Kind of went out, and I'm not sure how he did it. Maybe I should ask him to come on, but he became a dealer just for Ober tires. And then so he started bringing the tires. He had the tent and everything to the track. What was that? Probably 3 years ago, Chris? I'm going to guess. Probably 3 years ago, he started bringing everything to the track, and he started making nice deals. And that's the other thing that I've noticed is the price of them is very competitive. It's not like I'm the new one. Lots of times when you see something new come out, you know people might going to want it. Well, then it seems like the price is always up there and it starts to come down. But it just seems to me like from the very beginning, when he started bringing them to the track and people trying them, and he had some fun stuff going on with them. And right away I kept hearing that, and these tires are priced right, you know, and more people started switching over to them and stuff when he had them at the track and everything. And I think it's still moving forward like that, but it's just, we're learning more about them. That's why it's so important for you tonight, you know, and like with Matt here and stuff, with Matt's raced several tires, he's been on your tires. But so tell us a little bit about, we talked about the terrain earlier. Mm-hmm. Do you switch like a model of tire when you get to say a rocky terrain, you know, like, you know, might be limestone, you know, or something?
Yeah, I know that, like for me, so right now it's very tough because I have one tire that's available right now. Now, mind you, the Kraken, we did some testing, right? I run an Ironman. I run it to Hoosier. We did some things with it. Now I've got there's a revision with it, which should be the final product. I just got a batch coming this week. So keeping the fingers crossed, right? There's always potential issues, but yeah. So for me, when I go from track to track, it's pretty easy. And I've learned over the years that if you give too many choices or too many options, nobody can make their mind up. So for us, it was about making a product that'll work for everyone, which is the Advent. That tire will work for anybody that wants to trail ride, anybody that wants to race, anybody that wants to serious race, casually race, hill climb, whatever. Now that the new Kraken tire, that is something that's a little more pushed towards like your racing crowd or your performance crowd, right? It's a little bit different compound, a little bit different ply. When I say ply, it's still going to be a 6-ply tire. It's going to be a little more flexible, right? As far as your durability is still going to be the same, but the tire is going to work a little bit better because, you know, we all run some kind of flat proof system, right? Which is, you know, I'm a block guy, so I run tire blocks, but Yeah, they for me, I don't really change it much. We might do a little bit with air pressure here or there. I know a lot of people are always interested or asking about grooving. You know, when we groove the tires, why do you do that? Why do what's the reason? Well, I always, at first when I was younger, I did it because I wanted to make the tire softer. I had to make the tire softer. It's got to be soft, got to be soft, got to be soft, right?
Okay.
Well, I was thinking like, well, we're going to take rubber away. That's going to make it soft. Well, me being young and not knowing any better, it doesn't change the carcass or the compound or anything with the tire. You're just allowing the tire to flex a little bit more is all you're doing. So then I got to really thinking about it and looking at it. And it was during COVID where this really I had all this time to think, right? I mean, hell, we wasn't doing nothing for 2 or 3 months. Like everybody was locked in their houses. So I was just literally just trying to find things to do. And I remember looking at it and I'm like, we don't groove these to make them softer. So we do it for another edge. So the tire right now is one solid lug, right? So say if you've got the one lug like this, right? You've got a front edge and you've got a back edge. Am I correct? So you've got a biting edge and you've got a braking edge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you've got 1 point of contact for the acceleration and 1 point for the decel. We take and cut the center out. Now you got an acceleration and an acceleration. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a double biting edge. So it has nothing to do with softening the tire. I could take that tire and I can make it do exactly what I want to do. The tire's good already. I don't groove every tire. But there are some cases like where the track, say, would be more dry, right? And you need more traction, more edge. So you give it more edge by cutting the tire. Or if the track's super heavy and soft, like say at Iowa, I'm sure a lot of guys out there probably don't groove a tire because you don't need to. Am I correct, Matt?
I didn't groove a tire until I went to GNCC. And
there you go.
To be honest, to elaborate on that a little more for maybe the racers that aren't at the highest level, I would say don't even waste your time and energy with it, because like Adam was just saying there, there are benefits to it, but on the flip side of that, you have guys like Adam and I or me at the time, not anymore, but the competing at a higher level, that little bit of an extra edge literally makes a difference. But if you're an amateur guy just working your way up, that tire is going to wear out faster having more edges too. So you have to think of something like that too. Don't do it just because the Gator's doing it. Do it if you really feel necessary, or maybe you have the extra funds to put on an extra set of tires, but it's not 100% necessary. And then of course, different soil types. It really isn't. In Iowa, I did run groove tires to see. It is, in my personal opinion, 100% pointless in Iowa soils to groove a tire. It doesn't really bring you any benefit whatsoever.
Like when I go to Florida, like we race Florida, I don't want it because it's too much, right? The tire still has to spin. You still got to break the bike loose, right? You can't just drive the ATV, right? So you got to get off the seat. You got to do all that. And it makes it hook up so much harder because you have those edges. And I know it does wear out quicker. I don't know what the rate is. I would say a third quicker. I know it's not half as quick, but it does take life away. So if you're going to get 4 races on a tire, I'd say you get 3, maybe 4 on a good day, but
I agree.
God, like snowshoe, dude, consider them gone. They're junk.
100%.
And it's rock, it's blacktop, it's ski, it's everything West Virginia's got in one round, and they're trashed. They're trashed. I remember, if you got time for a story, I remember going to Missouri and racing there for a GNCC. Dude, when I got done, the one and only, and I got third, baby. Hell yeah. But I remember going there and we raced that race. When I got done, I remember we was going up on the podium. They said, "Look at your tires." And I looked at them and there was nothing. They were like slicks. It took every lug off of them, but it was a rocky, from what I remember, rocky. It was muddy as shit. It was like shale, and it just burned them off. And I mean, if I wouldn't have grooved them or had grooved tires or whatever at that point, they might have lasted the whole race to where I could have maybe got second. So there is an advantage to doing it, and there is a disadvantage to doing it. And I agree. I think it's all based on preference, and I think it's all based on whether or not, and then, like you said, Matt, it would be more cost to do it because you have to replace them more, and then you got to buy the groover to do it.
Yep.
You
And
know, so the
grooving's just not
groover-
any fun.
No, hell no, dude. If I could have all the rubber back that I cut out of tires over my years, dude, I'd have a bunch more tires.
So you guys talk about grooving tires. Do you guys ever recommend or try yourself maybe playing around with tire pressure from different types of terrains?
Definitely.
So yeah. I change them a lot. So, and the older I get, it's weird because when I was young, my dad's like, he's like, you used to be able to ride that 4-wheeler. You didn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Your levers would be like this. You didn't give a shit about nothing, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, I could tell when the bike's losing traction. I could tell when there's a noise, you know, it's like I'm more aware of things, right? And if it's not perfect, and being 37 years old, Dad, I can't cram it in them 2 trees and know the tie rod ends are loose anymore. It's just not worth it, you know? But like pressures, I find myself running less because like with the you know, for tire blocks, for example, right? Because that's what I run.
Yeah.
And so for me, I know that if it's hot out, by the time we leave the trailer, we go to the start line, we do introductions, we do all that happy old BS, right? 10 seconds, blah, blah, all that stuff. We're out there in that sun for 45 minutes to an hour. That tire is going to gain pressure. Am I correct?
Yep.
That tire then went from 2 pounds to 4 pounds, and now we're going to go spin the balls off of it for 2 hours, and it's going to gain even more pressure. So for me, that's another thing. It's just like, it's like finding that edge, right, Matt? Like you were saying, you was trying to find that edge, and there's all these little things that come into play when it comes to the only thing that's touching the ground, and it's the tire.
Yep. So for me, I started out, I feel like in my career, too low a pressure. When I was first starting out, I gradually brought it up, and I find a big difference, and probably something that people listening to this that aren't running run flat. And I don't know if you have any input on it, Adam. I tend to run a definitely more pressure if I don't have a run flat system in there. Otherwise, it feels kind of squirrely to me.
Yes.
So I do typically I would run about 2 pounds more if I didn't have blocks, or I ran blocks and spines through my career. That's the only thing I ever used. So very similar setups, and I would run less pressure with those, and because you have more stability in there. You have a run flat system inside the tire helping support that tire. So if you run too low of a pressure, I could notice that, and it would just feel out of control, too much for me. So I would say if there's guys out there not running, experiment with maybe higher pressures rather than lower pressures if you're not running a run flat system.
For sure. I know that, like, I was always the guy that would run because I didn't have the funds. We always had the best we could buy, not the best you can afford growing up. That would mean not every bike had tire blocks or tire balls or spines or whatever in them, right? Sometimes we just had to run what we had to run, which was stock wheels with leftover shit that your buddies gave you, you know? And I remember always setting the ATV up with no fill in them, nothing in the tire, just air, right? And when I would do it, I would bounce between 4 and 6 PSI with no air. And the reason I did that is because when you start putting things in the tire becomes very dead. And what I mean by that is you take a tire and you take it on a wheel, right? And you just put air in it, right? And you take it and you drop it. It bounces, right? Now you take and you put that same tire, you put a fill in it, you do the same air and you drop it, and it damn near does half the bounce. Am I correct? And that's either because of weight or because that stuff absorbs impact. So I knew if I got the bike to handle well with just air, I knew it would be good with the insert in it. But yeah, I can't agree. Like, dude, I run anywhere between with the blocks or the inserts, I run anywhere between 1 and 2.5, maybe 3, right? So say 1 and 3, and the front's anywhere between 4 and 6. Now with
Good to know I was close.
So with nothing in them, I run 4 to 5 in the back and 6 to 7 in the front. Every time. So
I do.
It's just that feel I get. I guess it's the feel because you don't have. I don't know how to explain it, but it's funny. You know, you say that too because it's true.
Yeah, I always say, tell guys that ask me if you have no blocks or spines or any whatever, if you have no run flat system, I was in the 7 to 8 in my fronts, which me personally, I know I preferred a much stiffer bike in general, suspension, tires,
So you
everything.
don't
Like
like
that was just,
a sloppy
yeah.
feel?
No,
Okay. Yeah.
I hate it. It drives me freaking nuts. I would rather get beat up a little bit than have that for sure. And I
That's
don't know
why
if
you
it's
got
just
that
being
big old beard, ain't it?
yeah, I'm sure it's probably has something to do with the fact that I was 6'2", 200 pounds, but I don't know. I mean, I was a big
Yeah.
boy, but I run 7 to 8 in the front with nothing, and I would run usually about 6 in the rear if I didn't have any run flat system. And then the run flat system, I was basically right on par with you. I was maybe a pound higher than you, but it's funny you say that. So have you ever messed with rebound difference between having blocks or spines in there? Because I actually would change. I would change one clicker rebound for my practice bike if it had the same shocks.
Bullshit. You wouldn't
No.
notice one click. I know better.
Dead serious.
Really?
Yeah, I noticed it. And I don't know if it's what you said. It's the dampening. That spine or those blocks dampen that impact. And I only noticed it on really sharp edges. I'm not going to say I noticed it through breaking bumps necessarily, but if you were in like the sharp edges of West Virginia or down there in Missouri racing, I would notice that. I would change a little bit.
Like the last like feeder coming off the peg squeezing the tank. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to help solve a little bit. And like I said, I was a little picky with it, probably because I rode such a stiff suspension bike anyway. I mean, I don't ever remember telling my shock guys, let's soften it up ever.
Hey, let's just make this not work really good. So I'm just hanging on for the whole time. It's all good.
Pretty much. I could corner like a motherfucker though.
Hell yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So for me, we do change certain things, but the tire does not change. And that's why, the new Kraken's out and I am super pumped because now I have an option, right? Now I've got like my day bag and I've got my weekend bag. I've got two things I could choose from. Now they are different, right? And I have a feeling I'm going to be swaying more one way than the other because it's a little more performance based, but it gives you that option to fall back on, like Matt said, you're not chasing the nationals or the top series, but you are a guy that still does the IATV HSS, right? You still do some racing. So the Advent is going to be a better tire for the guy that just wants to go race and still wants good performance, but I can't even tell you a price point yet, but for the price point of the Advent, dude, that's a kick-ass tire for the money. I mean, what is 380 shipped, I think is what it is right now. So
pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think it's 380 shipped is what it is on Amazon. I think it might be a little bit cheaper with Black Friday and Christmas and all that stuff, but I think it was 383. It was right at $400 shipped for the set.
So like you were just saying there's with those options, and a lot of companies have options. So it's not just Ober, but so for guys out there that are watching and considering, if you're not racing at that top level, definitely think about what you just said, Adam, is maybe don't pick the performance tire because you don't want to have to buy tires quite as often, have them wear out quite as often. Maybe like I know on my years with GBC, there was a tire, the XC Master was a much harder compound and would hold up for many, many more races, and in sharp rocks wouldn't cut it. So if you're a weekend warrior just out there having a good time, my personal opinion, that's a way better tire for you. Yeah, you're not going to have the same traction as the GB3, but that tire is going to last you probably 2 to 3 times the races. So you're not going to have to dump as much money. And so maybe you'll have more fun at it and on top of that, it was a cheaper price point to start with. So I like that companies have options, and people need to consider that. Just because it's not what Adam's running or Walker or Bryson or whoever, that doesn't mean you have to run it. Maybe look at their brand and find a tire that maybe suits you a little bit better. If you're just a weekend warrior, you're just starting out, something that'd be. And if you're not running a run flat system, I would also recommend a tire that maybe has a little harder compound and a little better puncture resistant, because who wants to ride around with a flat tire? That sucks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let me ask you.
There's definitely options with every company, and I would highly recommend looking at them depending on your skill level and what you're looking to do. And if you want the best in the race tire, obviously go for it, but doesn't mean you have to have it for sure.
No, I've won races on a lot of different things, man, and every tire is good in their own way, correct? And it might not be a name brand like Obor, and it might not be a cheap super Amazon Sunuff or tire guider or whatever you can buy, right? But some people like them. I have friends that ride off-brand tires and love them, and I'm like, dude, I've given you tires, new tires. I've given you a set, run them. Nope, I like these. They're $150 for the set. I love them. I'm like, whatever, dude. Some people just like it. I mean, I would love everybody, especially everybody that rides a Honda, to run an Obor tire. But there's going to be things about that people don't like, and that's why you have your choices, right? But your first choice should always be, like you said, the people that put back in the industry, right? And who's putting in the industry. Look at that, and then after that, make your choices.
I agree with that across the board. If there's a company putting effort into the industry, I don't care if it's shocks, seats, tires, wheels, it doesn't matter. Try and support them if at all possible. Try and find one of their products that suits you.
As long as it's not a manufacturer, if you know what I mean. Yep, we'll just leave that there, boys.
So let me ask you guys a couple questions you guys have keyed on there. Great info you guys just put out there, but 2 topics that you guys keyed on. Number 1, on the air pressure. So you guys getting pretty detailed, but it's something that everybody, when you go out there and watch, are checking their tire. I remember one of my first GNCCs, I had a guy that was there just to help me check my tire pressures.
Oh, I got to go first.
Yeah, because you know who it was?
Who was it? Was it you, Chris? That guy can't even read his own name, let alone a tire gauge. You kidding me?
Thank you. I rolled up to the line, Adam, tire man. I rolled up to the line. Someone's like, you got a flat tire, don't you? Thanks, Chris. Let's go back to the trailer.
Yeah, thanks, bud. I was just prepped and psyched up, kissed the wife and the kids goodbye with a kick ass. And you just ruined everything. Took the motion.
God,
man.
But anyway, I don't want to knock Chris, but
yeah, we do.
Man, got Adam joining you on here too. So this is I'm getting double teamed here.
But everybody is always, I see it all the time. I know you guys have too, but you might be standing there and you see a guy and he's like, hey, what pressure do you run? He's always questioning his pressure off of what somebody else runs, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing to ask, to kind of see if you're in the ball field, but everybody has their individual riding style. So it could change a couple pounds based off the way you guys ride. But with that pressure, the number one question I always hear people talking about is when you get to a race. So we're going to talk Iowa, for instance, right now. Okay. You both have raced here before. Mm-hmm. If it's been raining and it's going to be a mud race, let's say you guys have both mentioned your rear tires, you run 4 to 6 pounds, right?
With no fill, right? We're going no fill.
Yep.
Okay.
No fill. So we just got 2 inches of rain the night before. What pressure are you going to start? Are you going to adjust from that? The lower end, go to 4. Are you even going lower, Matt?
Yep.
I wouldn't. Adam might. I wouldn't, though.
I'm not 200 pounds yet. Gotta remember that. Yet. But no, I agree with Matt. You drop pressure. You want, when it gets muddy like that, you want it to get traction. You want that. So when you put air in a tire. So like, I've heard of people call it like a baby powder test, right? So put baby powder on the floor of the garage or whatever, right? And you put your air pressure in it and you roll the bike through the baby powder. And that'll give you a track of what is actually on the ground, right? So the less air, more contact patch you have on the ground. So if you got 4 PSI, in theory, you would have all lugs on the ground at all times. And as you put more air into it, the tire starts to hump or bubble, right? You start to take traction away from the tire. So essentially, you would be doing yourself a disservice by putting more air in the bike if it was, muddy or a bad condition.
Another thing to think about with that is exactly what Adam just said is true, but then also think you don't necessarily need as much air because you don't need that tire to be quite as stiff or rigid, because you're not going to be able to corner in a mud race. If it's a slop fest, you're not going to be able to corner as hard. So that tire rolling over hard in the corner and getting into the sidewall bad isn't really going to be a problem. So lower air pressure is not going to hurt you in that sense.
No. I mean, I've run, oh God. I mean, we've run tires flat before, but I've run as low as 3 to 4, like 4 pounds is like, that's getting the limits. But back in the day, I mean, the tracks have changed so much with the speed of the riders and the shock setups and tires. And I mean, the sport has doubled in, progression since God, I started, but to have more tire on the ground is always going to be better when it's muddy, and especially now because I mean the tracks are so fast and so open, and every little advantage you can get, and it might be 1 psi is that advantage.
Gotcha. So on that same track, it's a perfect setting. Okay, it's 75, 80 degrees out. The track had some moisture in it, but it's nice and solid. It's not going to fall apart. I'd almost say a hard packed track. Are you going to stay? Where are you going to go compared to where you were on the mud?
Well, I'm going to let you answer that, Matt.
Well, if you're still in Iowa, I'd lean to the higher side because traction's in abundance on this black dirt. We don't really have that traction issue. So when I switched to GNCC racing and started running all those, that was the biggest thing for me on the learning curve. That's why I performed pretty well at tracks like Camp Coker, the sandier, looser soils. It's what I was used to here in Iowa, and especially living close to the Mississippi River. I know sand quite well, but when I got to those harder, like real hard packed West Virginias, and ice in the New Yorks and stuff where there's a lot of rock and hard pack, I struggled because I wasn't used to not having traction. Here in Iowa, we've got traction. So for me, that's when I would go back up to that 6 in the rear and 8 in the front. Like I said, I run a tad on the higher side. I know that. It felt better to me. And it was probably because I was a little on the heavier side, being tall and just a bigger guy. So to me, I would run the higher side, because if you're in Iowa now, if that same track is a West Virginia or New York, I don't know that I'd be that high. Well, I know I wouldn't be that high, but
Yeah.
In Iowa, we got the traction, so I'm not really too worried about that.
Dude, and that's crazy to think, like you're talking about perfect dirt and all that stuff, but like out here, honest to God, 5 max, maybe 6. Like they say, and I don't know how true it is, they say the more air pressure you have in the tire, the more prone you are to like cutting it because it doesn't form over what you're rolling over. I don't know that to be true, but I mean, we always bounced around. Typically when it gets drier, we would do more air is what we would do. Now, mind you, it's been some years since I've had nothing in a tire, but we would always seem to put more air in it. And whether that was right or wrong, that's just what we did. And a lot of it seems to be like you was talking, you see people asking like, hey, what's your pressure? Like, what's your tire pressure? What's your shock pressure? What jetting you're running, or what are you doing here? Right. What's your tune? And a lot of it is monkey see, monkey do. And like what works for me doesn't really work for Matt, right? Like I can get him in the ballpark. I can get him in that area or that range that'll be okay, but it's not going to be perfect for him because like he just said, he's 200 pounds. He's from Missouri, Iowa, he's across Mississippi anyway. Right. So, it's just different. Right. But I can get you in a range that'll get you a good starting point. But what makes it is what you put into it. So if you want it to be good and you want it to work, it takes a little bit of effort. Right. I'm not going to be able to give you like, oh, hey, here's your tool. You need to go win races. Go take it. Right. It takes work. And that's just one of the things and steps you have to do is you got to figure out, the tire. You have to figure out what pressures work best for you. You got to figure out what insert, what this, right? It's just, and that's why you have choices, not so much with Obor as far as like the ATV line, but we are getting there. But everything is different, right? Every machine is different. The weights of the machine, you got to take into effect, right? That changes air pressure. That'll change how you want it, right? And then you've got the width, right? You widen the machine out. Essentially, the machine will get looser, so you might want a little less air. You might want more air because so there's a lot of things that go into effect of how much pressure you would run. But typically, like here in West Virginia, we wouldn't venture above 5 pounds in a standard XC tire, like an Advent.
Yeah, and skill, figure in skill too. I mean, be honest with yourself. Depending on what class you're in, and you know your level. I mean, I would never recommend my tire pressure to anybody that's not a bigger guy in general, and definitely not if you're not riding hard. Because if you're putting 8 pounds of pressure in your front tires and you're only 135 pounds soaking wet and a C class rider, it's not going to feel good on your arms at the end of the race. I can promise you that.
Yeah, remember that bounce effect? You wouldn't have enough ass to keep it on the ground.
Yep. So keep all that in mind too when we're throwing out these numbers. Like Adam said, they're ballparks. And also, I mean, I'm probably on the higher end of things just in general because I'm a bigger guy. I mean, and I just preferred it. I played around with tire pressure like crazy, and that's just what I kind of preferred around here. But I did when I was going to GNCCs, especially harder packed rock ones. Yeah, I was dropping significant. I mean, PSI, and if I had, which I almost always had, I don't know that I don't think I ever ran without some sort of run flat system at GNCC. Some of those races, I mean, it was next to nothing. I mean, I was a pound or two is all I had in there over my run flat.
Yep, enough to keep the tires safe, and that's it.
Yep.
So my second question is what you guys have both keyed on, and I'm going to take just a second longer before we talk about that, and that is the run flat system. But while we're still on the tire pressure, one last question for you is, over the last 21 years of our series, I've noticed the same, and this ain't knocking anybody. It just, ironically, this happened. So I want you guys' both opinions on this, whether they're on a side-by-side, whether they're on an ATV, but it seems to be, I can have 150 riders, no flats, but I can have the same rider have a flat consistently, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, well, there's something out there that's hurting it, but that's the only person that's finding it. What would you say to where would I start to look if I'm that person that's continually having that issue?
Under the helmet.
Really? Well, this is all good.
I'm not saying it is, but it's an option. You gotta ride smart on certain races too. I mean, if you go out there and just go balls to the walls and snowshoe and disregard the fact that there's sharp rocks and edges everywhere, no, you might bend a wheel, you might cut a sidewall, you got to be smart with it too in some spots, in those real treacherous spots. So that's always an option. I'm not saying it's the problem, but it could be the problem.
Yeah, I have guys that I'm close to that, so you talk about cutting tires, right? It seems like when I cut fronts. For some reason, I'm a front tire cutter, right? And I have friends that are back tire cutters. And and that could even be due to setup or how you ride or body position, or I mean, there's all kinds of things, right? How you enter a corner, how you exit the corner, where your throttle's at, like all these things. But like for me, with cutting fronts, right? So back in the day when we had no fill system except for tire balls, I would bust 3 to 4 tires or 3 to 4 balls every time in the tire balls versus, now. And the reason is because I seem to ride front end heavy, and I don't know why. And I assume because I steer more than I slide it. And it seems like guys that steer it more tear up fronts more than they do backs. Whereas I have friends that seem to just ride on the backs, like like the guys with the boots that tear the fenders up and all that stuff where your boots are all the time. It seems like to me that those guys are the ones that blow rears versus fronts. And it's like you said, it's always the same dudes. And it could be like Matt said, they just twist the throttle, and wherever it points, that's where we're going. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. We're going there, and we're going there as fast as we can.
I can 100% agree with that because I'm the guy that cuts the rears more often and wears out the rear fenders with my boots. And I rarely have front flats. And so I think it has a lot to do with rider style. That's why I wasn't picking on anybody, but I say, look under the helmet. It might just be your riding style, and either you have to adapt or get yourself a good run flat system. Maybe. I mean, it's bound to happen in our sport.
Yeah, and I wear, like you said, I wear the fronts of the tanks and up by the radiators. I mean, I've caved the radiators in with my knees before because I'm that far on it, and it's just that
I
different
never do
riding.
that.
Yeah, but it's just that different riding style. You know, I'm a
Yep.
shorter guy. You're a bigger guy. You're always used to great traction where I'm not, and it could be just the way the tire makes you want to ride because maybe I got more rear traction than you do at this time, but I need more front. There's
Yep.
all kinds of. There's no way to simulate racing and like to give an answer ever because there's so many variables with it. It's hard to really nail anything down.
Yep.
That makes sense. But I think every single thing you guys just said, whether it be a driving style, whether it be, in between the ears, under the helmet type situation, I think that still applies. Listen, you guys, whether you're on an ATV or whether you're on a side-by-side, heck, you could be on a dirt bike. It's the same things applying, right? As knowing when and width on the throttle or not, or your driving style, or I don't think it's just
if you drive in the turn under brake or if you drive in the turn under throttle, if you brake before it and drive through it, you're probably going to cut rears. But if you come in the corner and you slow down in the corner and then apex it, you're probably going to tear up fronts because, you're braking coming in instead of accelerating through it. I mean, there's all kind. Like I said, you can't pin it down to one thing. It just shit happens.
It's actually, this whole conversation just made me realize something. It's a little off subject, not a lot, but so Adam and I got two completely different riding styles we just established, but we both have been pretty good at mud races throughout our career. I find that really weird. We ride completely different styles like we just talked, but yet Adam's always been pretty damn good at mud races.
And I hate riding mud. I hate it.
It's we always say
I love it.
Our Andy and I always say that mud is the great equalizer.
Oh,
I love it.
It doesn't matter who you are. Look at Fort Dodge this year. It was muddy. Probably the first time in I don't know how many years that we've actually had to cancel a race and postpone it one day because there was no way anybody was going to get out there on that track and survive.
X Factor 2019, one of the more fun races I've ever raced in my life.
Which one was that?
X Factor GNCC 2019, and then AXCC was that 2020 or I believe.
I remember the Texas round. It was so cold it was freezing. I remember.
That sucked.
From people. It was like icicles on their helmets. I'm like,
it was snowing.
Kill it, guys! Kill it! You guys are doing so good.
Oh, I had ice in my beard.
Oh my god!
Was that Oklahoma that it rained the night before in the AXCC? I think in 2020. I'd have done better on a jet ski than I would have a four-wheeler.
6 inches, I think it was.
There was so much water.
Yeah, I think we got 6 inches of rain.
It was unbelievable. I've never seen water like that. There was straightaways that would have been just fifth gear tapped straightaways before you got to the next corner. I couldn't even get the thing into third gear because the water was dragging it down so bad. I don't know how it survived, but I made it to the end.
Dude, if I've paid my dues, man. And if I don't have to, I leave that thing in the trailer. I've done it many times. I'm like, I'm out, guys.
Okay, so let's get on to still on the tires. I don't want to lose focus on the tires, but both of you two have mentioned the run flats. Okay, now there's several different brands. I think you said you run tire blocks, Adam. Was that correct?
Yes, correct.
Around here, I would say we're dominated by Tire Spine. They do a really good job of being around at some of our races in the Heartland and stuff, So Steve does a really good job. So we have quite a few of them here. When I say quite a few, probably the upper A's, maybe some utility riders and your double A's. A lot of side-by-sides run them. But I get asked about this all the time. And I'll admit, when they first came out, I was like, why in the world do you need these things? Because once again, we're talking Iowa. We just don't have a ton of flats around here, And then I start talking to people as I went to other places with AXCC and we've seen all the flats. I think we set a record at Loretta's, if I remember right.
Oh,
how many flats we had down there. But I like you guys' single take, no matter what brand it is on them. I always tell people, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to correct me if I'm saying this wrong. I don't think that it's one of those things like protection with your skid plates and stuff like that. It doesn't make us faster, I don't believe. But what it is to me, it's probably the single best insurance plan out there. When you're spending all this money, you're spending all this time. Matt, I know you did a ton of traveling racing GNCC from Iowa. How many times did you drive 16, 18 hours to get to a race? And you have a flat a mile out there, you know, it had nothing to do with how good the tire was. It's about hitting that sharp rock or hitting that would take any tire out, you know. And now I've got another, it's like 25 hours now because I got to drive home knowing I spent all this money. I get there and I have a flat tire. It takes me out of the race. So I always say it's a great insurance policy. You know, it's a no-brainer for the money that we spend on stuff that we probably don't need. It looks cool. We think it makes Adam go faster, so it's going to make us go faster. You know what I mean? This is a thing to me that just seems like now, even in Iowa, I tell everybody, absolutely, if you got the funds to do it, get it on there so you've got that extra protection. No matter how, it's not knocking a tire by having it. You know what I mean? To me, that's just that insurance. But give me you guys both have experience with this. Give us your take on a guy questioning buying, whether it's the right thing or it's the wrong thing, or what skill level, or is it just having the funds to be able to do that? What you guys just take?
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So for me, I didn't run any brand name until I started running GNCC, because I do partially agree with you, Andy. In Iowa, we are much, much less prone to it. And at the same time, what you said, it is a good insurance policy. So it's never a bad thing if you have the funds. Now, there are some backyard options that are considerably cheaper. They're not near as much fun to install or deal with. They don't work anywhere near as good, but there are some other options for racers that maybe don't have the funds and can just go to Walmart and buy a few kids' toys and make it work. I did that for a lot of years in Iowa and around here. But if you're running at a higher level in any class of any series, I would highly recommend it if you can afford it, for sure. And I'm not partial to any brand anymore. I've only ran spines and blocks. They work phenomenal. I mean, like you said, I couldn't tell you the amount of GNCC races that I went to, and when I got done, there was at least one cut tire. And I've had races, and I'm sure Adam has too, where I've had 3 of my 4 tires did no longer hold air when we get done with the race. And yeah, it does nothing against the tires. Just the stuff that we're putting them through and inspecting them to do is all fine until they hit that one razor sharp rock. So they're worth the money if you can afford it, in my opinion. Yes. And keep in mind, maybe if you can afford one and you're a C or B class rider, they're going to last you a very long time, because you're not going to put quite the heat into that block or that spine to wear it out. So for Adam and I's sake, we wear them out a little faster than, say, a C class rider. So if you're putting that investment in, you're going to have that product for a long time, where maybe we wouldn't be able to do that. So that's something to consider too. If you're making the investment, it might last you a lot longer than you think.
Yeah, so there's positives, and to me there's positives and negatives to it. I was around when there wasn't any, and I was around when now there's 3, right? And the big 3 are spines, blocks, and balls. And I remember when it first came in, it was never if you was going to get a flat tire, and it was when. And it wasn't that the tire was hard to change, right? It's 4 lug nuts. I mean, we had wheels, we had all this stuff. But it was the time that you wasted when you got the flat, because it would always be right after you went by the pits. You cut a tire, and you would ride 80% of the track on a flat. So you would lose 2 or 3 minutes to get back to your pit. So it's not that it's something that I feel you have to buy. But I definitely think it's, like you said, Andy, it's very good insurance to know that you don't have to worry about that. One, it would cut down on some costs, because you don't have to buy another set of wheels or another set of tires. But they, depending on what you go with, they are a little pricey, right? And Matt made a good point. He said that they do last a long time. I will say that I run a set of blocks. Normally, if I get them and I get them broken how I like it, I can run them almost a whole GNCC season. Now, mind you, that is tearing them down, cleaning, lubing, and installing in a new tire. But there is, I mean, to have it, right, we're talking about keeping things at budget, right? So you have tires, you have wheels, and you got your inserts. It allows you to run that tire till that tire is completely garbage if you choose to, and then discard it and put a new tire on. And 90% of the time, as long as those blocks or inserts did not get hot, they're fine. So for me, it's even allowed longevity with a tire, because now you can run the tire till there's nothing left of it and pitch it and put a new tire on.
So with what you had just mentioned there, you have the opportunity. And again, I just want to keep saying this because I don't want anybody to ever think that you have to buy a tire insert, a wheel or, tire insert just because of like, oh, this brand of tires. Again, it has nothing really to do. I think everybody would agree. There's great tires out there that doesn't need it, but even the best tire can have a situation with the terrain that we race on. You know what I mean?
For sure. So, I mean, you like you guys say, you race Iowa, right? You don't have a whole lot of issues with flats, but I can promise you, I could take you where I grew up riding, and you will bust a tire. It doesn't matter what brand, what tire. I'll never forget. Everybody knows ITP, right? The ITP tire.
Yep.
I remember they come out with the HD. You remember what their slogan was in 2006, 2005? What it was for the HD? You remember that?
No.
Puncture proof. Okay, so they come out, and no bullshit. They come out. We went to Rouse Creek in Tremont, Pennsylvania. One of the rockiest races I've ever been to in my life. We go there, right? They just released this thing. They had a line of people. Now, mind you, at that time, the only people that had these so-called tire balls at the time was like Yoakley, right? And I don't even know if he even had them then, but there was talks. They had those tires. They sold out. Every freaking tire they had, they sold out, right? They are puncture proof. 90% of them come back busted. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could literally run a solid fill, and I promise you'll mess it up ATV racing.
Sure.
Because it's just the way it works. But like you said, you've got a tire that is designed not to puncture, and it does. It's just one of those things. It's just racing, and it happens, right? You can't control it. You can't control the outcome. It's like, and I know Matt's been this way. You go to the starting line, you're like, man, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm just going to ride around, right? Dude, if somebody tells you that, they are full of shit. They lied to you. You can't do that. You can't put a helmet on, go to that start line, and just ride around. That's like, I'm telling you. So it's just all. I mean, you don't need an insert. It's insurance to help. Yes, it helps. And like you said, it's changing the clutch cable. The clutch cable's $20. You're gonna drive 16 hours and not. So it's just. It's all in perspective. You have it, I agree to do it. The tires are good enough now that you don't need them, but it does help. That's about as simple as I can put it.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned earlier what I started to say there was about we have a flat. So now it happens right after the pits. So again, here we see a lot of people do it because the terrain's not near as bad, but the races that you guys race on in GNCC, you're probably going to destroy that wheel by the time you get back. So now we've lost the wheel. We've lost a tire. We've also lost our position and time in a race.
Yep.
How many times does that have to happen? I mean, if you're in your backyard race, that's one thing. But if you're Matt Lindle and you're driving 16, 18 hours to get to a race, or even half of that, how many times does that have to happen before that insurance policy I mean, it's already paid for itself. You know what I mean? With the inserts. So
yeah. I mean, you've got fuel, you've got hotel, you've got however much it costs you to take off of work, right? Because you got to take that into effect. If you miss work and it's a $500 day for you, you got to take that into effect. And these inserts or the blocks or the spines or whatever, they are expensive. But Matt said that you're getting good life out of your spines. Am I correct? I can get almost a whole year out of my block. So you buy them once a year and you're done. It's kind of like, I mean, if you buy a good tire, you can maybe run the whole year on a tire if the tracks are like you say out in Iowa. So it's like you put them together, Yeah, don't worry about it. And you just go out there and you ride. You worry about your other things. And so maybe it's just a peace of mind knowing that you've got a good tire, you've got an inch, you've got a flat prevention like a block, and you just go out there and you ride, right? And you ride the machine. Your biggest thing is try not to hit anything to jeopardize that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
So I want to get back to Ober here for a minute.
Yep.
Tell us, you've told us some about the company and the tires and stuff. How important it to both of you guys is it? We've mentioned that Ober this year for 2025 season will be the only one with a contingency in Iowa. How important is that? I'm not knocking any tire. I'm not knocking a brand. So keep this in mind. But knowing that there's a contingency there for you, maybe not. Let's don't talk about you guys' skill level yet. I'm talking just getting into the adults to the, maybe up to the A class and maybe even some of the youth classes, but how important is that when actually looking at the tire that you are going to run for that year?
To me, it was huge. So when I was an amateur, when I say I was an amateur, I mean, this is back in horse and buggy days, according to most now. But I remember going there and you would walk up to the registration trailer and they'd have these like these files, right? And it was all contingency stuff. And I never really understood what that was because I was young, right? And once I started figuring out what that was, that's money back in your pocket that you can use to buy tires. You can use to, buy gas for the truck to get there. And as I was, as I got older, I understood how much more that meant. But when I was young, my dad was taking me and paying for stuff, and we was winning $150 or something like that, and it was great, right? I was making $5 an hour, so $150 for 2 hours worth of work was great money. And to have that contingency and to know that that's there and to have that option to be able to cover some of that funds for me was huge once I figured that out. And some pay, cash, and some pay with product. And I mean, if you're getting product, it's just as good, in my opinion, as cash as a racer, because you could put that right back into your program, whether you use it the next weekend or you use it at the end of the year for a new build or a new bike.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Adam said. I mean, it was the at the time when I was coming up through the Iowa series, when GBC had their contingency, that was what put me on them from the start. Before I had a deal with them, years later, the contingency is why I chose that tire. It was simple as that. I didn't know any better, and that was just what Adam said. It's money back in your pocket one way or another, or free, cheaper, whatever it may be, depending on how much contingency you got. Tires for your next build or your next weekend. That was 100% of the reason why I started with GBC. Now, why I stayed with them was different reasons, but that was 100% of the reason why I went.
Very nice. And that's why I just want to hear it from you guys. Obviously, you guys have the experience, but to me, a company, that decides to do that for, I call it the grassroots, to me, that's huge, because that's where a sport starts. It's a GNCC, and I'm not trying to get off sidetracked here, but to me, a GNCC can't survive if they don't have the local series. We got to have people getting started. We've got to have people seeing the Adam McGills, the Matt Lindles, and where we can go to in our sport. And I don't, I know you guys get some recognition at GNCC and stuff, but man, I miss the magazine ads. I know it's all digital now, but that's where I think I see these big football players all the time, and how many people are actually playing football. It's like our racers and stuff. We've got to have the heroes. We've got to have the people they want to be like and stuff. And, it used to be that you sell this stuff on Sunday, or you race it on Sunday, you sell it on Monday, and I don't see that happening as much now. And I just, quite frankly, don't think you guys, when you guys align yourself with some of these companies, it's like you guys aren't getting the credit that I think that you deserve, on some of these products, and it's huge. And I think our sport needs a lot more of you guys. And Adam, not just because you're on here, but I mean, I know you've been told this a million times, but there's just a difference in everybody's personalities. And obviously, and we see you get on the podium at GNCC, the place goes nuts. I mean, you're always having fun with the sport. I'm out there at the youth races. I see you out there, shaking hands, talking to people. You're the one that people can always go up to during the races, and we just need more of that, so I think that's absolutely huge. It's one thing for us to talk about like the products and stuff and tonight's tires, but it's also about, if someone has a bad day, it's how you take that bad day. It's if you have a good day, it's how you take that day and move forward with it. And you've always been that one, I think, that's handled it really well. And not only that, but you almost you're that flamboyant that I want everybody to know how good it was,
Oh,
and that's huge for the sport. So for Ober to have you on there on their team, I think it's a marriage made in heaven, and someone getting into our sport and have that person that really shines and wants to tell the story, for them. It's huge. And so I definitely think,
Yeah, it's a very awesome thing, and like you said, with the youth and the kids, right? I don't want to talk a whole lot about that because that's not what it's talking about. But in order to get somebody started, you have to give a reason, right? And the reason would be, hey, Adam goes to the start, right? Adam goes down here, and I look at it a little bit like Adam Cincerillo. He started on a Cali, he ended on a Cali, right? He stayed with that brand through thick and thin, didn't matter. And with these kids, I'm instilling some of my things in them, right? Whether it be Obor or whether it be, anything else, right? At this point. But it's leaving that impression for them to be like, I want to be like that guy. I want to do what that guy does. Well, how do I do that? Well, we start by Obor, right? Or we start by this, or we start by that. And if it wasn't for kids, there'd be no racing. I got into it when I was 14. I lied about my age for 2 years just so I could race, right? So it's like I got into it because of me being a kid and wanting to meet these guys and wanting to see that. And there's been a lot of things that's changed my outlook on this growing up. But I will tell you that there's nothing more valuable to me than working with these kids and helping and being accessible. When you talk about magazines, right? I grew up reading Dirt Wheels, and Dirt Wheels was like my magazine, man. It was like, that was it. That was like the pinnacle. And then you had like 4-wheel and 3-way ATV action. You had like the others, right? And you don't have that anymore. So it becomes different. So now it's like with us, you're talking about like, people can relate or people can come up, right? It becomes more accessible, right? I become more accessible to people because right now I am literally live in front of however many people that are watching this podcast that are now going to then message me instantly through Facebook or through Instagram or through things like that they can ask these questions for, right? So if you make a bad product nowadays, it is known within hours of that product being shitty, versus a magazine is always 2 to 3 months behind is generally what it was, for best I can remember. Mm-hmm. So I had a year of feeding you a line of BS before it really got back to the company, before I got shit canned. So now I can't pump you full of crap because it's instant. It is simultaneous. Right now, you could get on there and you can message Obor Tires and be like, that guy is nuts. I don't like him, right?
I'm doing that right now.
You got it. That's what I'm getting at. It's like we are so accessible and nowadays that it's unbelievable. And the way sponsorship is working now and the way I walked downstairs the other day and, my wife Haley's on the couch and she's on, right. I'm not a huge TikTok fan, but I have one. But she's watching TikTok and fast forward. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's because we've lost that attention span to read a magazine, to look at a picture. It is literally fast forward, next scroll, fast forward, next scroll. So it's like now the attention span went from, the book, right? And you're reading this magazine or whatever, this article, to now it's like 6 seconds, maybe at max. How much crap can I feed you in 6 seconds before you make an opinion? So it's just changed so much. And it's like being accessible and being around. And it's like these kids can make their own opinion because they can contact me, right? Like the schools, the classes, it's a whole nother world that we're in, and the way marketing is and the way these kids are growing up and the way you can impact and leave impressions. And it's wild to see where we're at now versus, I mean, hell, even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it wasn't like this.
Right. Chris, will you do me a quick favor?
Yeah.
Will you get our questionnaire, our 2025 questionnaire out? I want you to go through with Adam here in just a minute.
Oh, boy.
And none of our opinion, or none of our, obviously voting things, but go through the scenarios like what do you have? What are you going to? I want Adam to be able to answer those, give him some of his other sponsors some highlight here. But before we do that, Adam, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here, but I just got on here. I'm that rider. I'm a B rider. I just got on. I'm from Iowa. I race all the Iowa series. I race a couple other local series when I can. I get to GNCC once or twice. I am open to tires. Okay. Tell me right now in your words, what tire would you recommend and why?
So that is a tough one because 100% I'm an Obor fan. But there are so many different options out there for you to choose that might suit you. But it boils down to a few things. It boils down to availability. It boils down to price. And it boils down to performance. What is going to suit you the best, right? Mm-hmm. So we have an Amazon store, ships right to your door. We have a price point that's $380 something, I think, shipped to your door. And we're making a new tire. So who's putting into the sport, who's making a price point, and who has an ease of availability? I'm an Obor guy. There are a lot of other good brands out there as well. I don't want to say that the Obor is your best choice, but I will tell you it is one of the top choices when it comes to choosing a tire, in my opinion.
And one other thing that is very important with what you just said with that B rider or whatever rider it is from Iowa, is there any contingencies at all in Iowa this year?
Yes. Yeah, there is a Obor contingency in Iowa. You just confirmed that with me, and I am super excited to say that Obor is offering a contingency with the IATV HSS, and I'm glad to say that I know that we've helped a lot in 2024, and you was the first one that I've heard in 2025, and I know there will be more. I don't know if there's going to be any new added, but I know that there are some that are coming back, but I have yet to see that sheet. So it is really awesome to know that, like I said earlier, that they're still pushing, they're still making a new tire, they're making a new product, they're making a push in the industry, and frankly, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
And I just wanted to highlight that no matter what series you're in, take a look at that. That's just huge. So, but Adam, definitely thank you. Matt, do you have any questions for Adam?
No, I just want to thank him for what he does for the sport, because I think what you said with the way he handles the youth and does stuff. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I've obviously known Adam for years at the races and whatnot. He has helped me out on a personal level too with some companies and different things over the years. Great guy, but I don't think it has anything to do with the sponsors. I think he's just a good guy in general, and that's why he does it. He's not out there on the youth line because he's trying to pump tires down somebody's throat. He's out there because he enjoys the sport and the kids. And to me, that's extremely important, and I really think that's cool. Since day one of going to the GNCCs, I've seen it, and I thought it was very, very cool. It's teaching kids. I think it's teaching them a good lesson, which is just be a good human being. So thanks for that, Adam.
I really appreciate that. You talk about that, right? I have a small story to tell about this and when it really clicked, right? And this one, I might get a little bit emotional with it, but just bear with me. I had factory rides, right? I had a factory ride for 4 years, and I'm at the top of the world, right? I'm making money. I'm just showing up. I've got a gear bag. I don't have to worry about shit. And we're in the motorhome, and it's after a race, right? And I remember in there and I changed or I showered and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm getting dressed and I'm really bummed, right? Because all I have to focus on is racing. And I remember sitting here on the couch and my mother walks in when my mother used to go with us. She walks in and she goes, "Hey, there's some kids out here that want to autograph at, she calls me Kurt. Long story short, Adam's my first name, Kurt's my middle name. So we'll leave it at that. That's another podcast. So my mother walks in and she goes, Kurt, there's some kids out here that want your autograph. And I said, "Mom, I don't have time for that." And she looks at me straight in the face. Now, mind you, my mother, you know when moms are pissed. I'm sorry. You just know it. And my mother looks at me and she goes, "AA." I'm like, what the hell does that mean, Mom? She goes, "You're being an arrogant asshole. These kids don't give a shit how you finished. Get out here and see them." And that started the change in me because it didn't matter. They weren't there to see me because I did well. They were there because they were fans, right? And why are they fans? It's because of the things that I do outside of it. So I started to realize that these kids like me for me, not being a racer. So the older I got, the more I got to be myself. And now it's me. I mean, I go to the races. I love seeing the emotion, right? I don't understand how these kids are competitive racers, cutthroat, and they can walk the start together, and then they can play on their bicycles when the race is over. No idea how they do it, but I commend them for that because, like, I watch this and I'm like, you guys are best friends, but on the track you're not, but you're still buddies when you're done, and you put him into a tree or her into a tree, and it's like when they come off the track, especially with working with a lot of them that I have, it's like you feel that, and I felt that from when I was 14 and I'm 37. I know what they feel. So it's like that connection you have with these kids. It's not like I'm going around, like Matt said, pumping product down these kids. I'm there because I love ATV racing. I've done it it'll be 24 years next May. I have done ATV racing in an AMA platform for 24 years. And it has nothing to do with making money. It's genuinely, I love ATVs. I do. And and you're already there at the tracks. Get your ass out of bed and go talk to these kids because they're at your start. You don't think it's important for you to be at theirs? And it just blows me away when you think I put my pants on one leg at a time. When you think you're better than somebody else, and I'm sorry to get on this rant, but when I lost everything, when I say I lost everything, I went from a full factory ride making a good money, good living, right, to nothing. And I mean nothing. And I remember sitting at that table with my mom and my dad and having to walk past all those people that I snubbed and all those people that I didn't have time for because I was too cool. That is a tough pill to swallow when you got to go back to those people that you've pushed off or you snubbed or whatever. So I will tell you that I will never, ever, ever do that again. Ever. I can't. And I don't like that feeling.
Oh, that's very respectable. And I'm gonna cast another one on you because Adam and I has had this conversation before, but I like Adam for a lot of reasons. And this is turning into the Adam show now, which I know you enjoy. But I got to take my take on Adam. And Adam probably already knows what I'm going to say. I'm a big NASCAR fan. I used to be a big NASCAR fan, but when you watch NASCAR anymore, it's like, the old guys are gone. And now whoever wins, I don't care who it is, I can almost tell you word for word what they're going to say in the winner's circle, Yep. And we have that same situation. I'm not knocking anybody in our sport, but every sport has that because it's what you're supposed to say. Here, I'm writing it down. This is what you're supposed to say.
Yep.
If anybody writes Adam a message that he's supposed to say every time, I want to see it because I never know what's going to come out of Adam's mind. and it's whether you're on the podium, whether you're out there, I've asked you some direct questions. I think you remember at one of our races. And what I like the most is Adam is more real than anybody in our sport has ever been. You will answer the question knowing that if you answer it in a way that's not what I want to hear, but it's what I need to hear.
Yep. It's the truth. And the truth, the truth hurts, man. And that's why a lot of people steer away from it. They tell you what you want to hear because it's easy. Sometimes you just got to be that way. And I don't like people questioning what I say when like we did today, right? Like on this podcast, we talk about tires, right? Mm-hmm. Matt was talking about tires. Chris, you was talking about tires. Everything that I said here is true. And people aren't going to question what I said because they know that I don't bullshit. It's the truth. And love me or hate me, it's how it is. And whether right or wrong or indifferent, I ride red. And I love drinking whiskey, and I like telling the truth.
And I appreciate that, Adam. And I've told you that several times. And I want to do a connection thing with you at the small story too, because I guarantee you've probably forgotten about this. And I will never forget the conversation I had with the phone call. And that was, I believe, 2 years ago, where my son, a good friend of ours, John Berg, was helping him go to a couple GNCCs. He went away to go wrestle at college, missed the adrenaline, missed the sport. He started taking a couple GNCCs, and our machine's a nice machine, but it's not everything updated the way it should be because Dad didn't do it because we're playing. We're not being serious, and they got to a race, and I remember John called me and he says, hey, he goes, when was the last time his suspension been gone through? I don't know. He's been at college for 4 or 5 years. I have no idea, and he's like, Dad, should I do it? I'm like, whatever you think you need to do. And I remember they went over and was getting the suspension worked on. And Brady calls me and he's like, Dad, you ain't going to believe this. I'm like, what? He goes, well, Adam McGill just called me by name. He actually remembered my name.
Dude, I remember when your boys were on 300s.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I remember when I remember when the IATV HSS was getting 400 to 600 riders. You just started. I mean, I've known you for a long time. Hell, I've known Matt for a long time, right? Chris, I just met you, so I ain't got a feel on you yet. But
normally I'm like putting the scoring trailer and I don't get out very much.
Well, good. That's where you need to stay. No, but I've known you guys such a long time, and it's I am terrible with names. There are certain people. Remember when I went out and I did the school? We did a school out there. You invited me out. We did a school. You put me up. Dude, that not a lot of people would do that. You wouldn't do that if you didn't trust me, and I like things like that. I'll never forget. And I'll always be thankful for those memories and the things we've done. And I'm a Heartland champ, baby.
Yeah, right.
I am.
Yeah. Now, hey, you are the Heartland Challenge champ.
I am.
Now, looking across from you now, what do you think about a guy like Matt that has won the Heartland Challenge as an Ironman 3 years in a row?
God, he hates his home life. That's all I can say.
I can make it better. I can make it even better, Adam. Because you probably don't know this. I did it would be my last year I did it. I did it on a basically stock. So revalve suspension only, HMF exhaust, stock top end, almost completely stock quad. Didn't even have a good steering stabilizer. It had one of the old shock style steering stabilizers on it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was 2018.
So are you challenging me? Are you challenging me, bro?
I'm just telling you, I like to punish myself, apparently.
I could tell. Hell,
I wouldn't recommend it.
Dude, I went out there and I've done it twice. I won it on a 4x4. and then I won it on a 450 a year or two later. But dude, them Ironmans you guys are a different breed. Okay. I asked my wife, right? I said, I want to do Ironman, right? Heartland Challenge. I want to do it. She looks at me. She goes, what the hell's wrong with you? I said, I don't know. I want to prove to me I could do it. She goes, you've done enough. You don't need to do that. And I'm just like, why? She goes, you're 36 years old. Don't. And I'm like, okay, I guess point proven. But dude, you guys, I got respect. Like the guys that do that endurance stuff. I've never done anything quite, to that extent. The only I could compare it to was I did the year I did Vegas to Reno. I ended up riding 250 miles of the 530-mile course. And so I did 100 miles, and then I had like a 3 or 4 hour break, and then I did 150 something at the end because I ran the chase truck. Yeah. Dude, yeah. When I get it. When I got there and I got off this thing, it was like, lift me up. I've smoked. I mean, dude, you guys are something else, dude. Hats off to you, and I'm glad you enjoyed the punishment. But my days of playing in the mud and doing that are about done of that. 2 hours is good.
I love it. I'd do it all the time if I could, but I don't think my knees and my back want to do it anymore now that I'm retired and lazy.
Yeah, maybe get you some overboard tires and let that air pressure down, baby, and get that soft ride.
All I do is sit in a tractor and let it do all the driving.
I know. I wonder what you really do when you farm out there. It doesn't look like you do much. You drink beer and grow beards. I mean, that's it.
Yep.
Oh, you
not all we do.
You go, boop.
Yep. That's it.
Oh my God. So,
all right, Adam. I'm gonna let Chris ask you a couple questions here. We do a questionnaire or a banquet every year.
Okay.
And I tell everybody this is probably some of the most important questions we ask every year.
Oh boy.
And this is because it gives you a chance to speak. What I mean by that is it doesn't do me no good to go over and get Red's gas station to be a sponsor if everybody likes Blue's gas station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we give you guys a chance to ask the question. A lot of these are like, what exhaust are you running today? If you're going to make a change for 2025, what will it be? So you can tell us what you're on, and if you're going to go to maybe a different sponsor or something like that, it gives you a chance to speak that. So, and that is how we kind of gear towards saying, okay, why are we getting this kind of a jersey if everybody has already indicated that they really like this one? You know what I mean? Okay. So that's kind of a different way I've set up to where now I know, okay, they may tell me no every time, but when I put this in front of some of the sponsors and some of the people, not even a sponsor, I say, this is what my rider's saying. Mm-hmm. And we're in the Midwest. We're not the most popular state, as far as the ATV racing or some stuff, but they see what people are looking at and it gives them a chance. And lots of times it allows us to look not only that, but tell what kind of a difference we've made in, let's say, Ober tire that has a contingency, we can tell where we were and where we are next year at this point. So just curious. I know you've got a lot of different sponsors and a lot of people have. So I'm just going to let him go through and maybe just ask you these questions for a fun 30-second deal here. So
just rapid fire here. Whatever comes to mind. What's your preferred race gear?
Moose.
What's your preferred brand of race boots?
Alpine Star or CD.
What's your preferred brand of goggles?
I've wore a lot of brands. I like my Liats, dude. That's no BS. Scott makes a good product. Liat is it suits me a little bit better.
Okay. Preferred brand of gloves?
Oh shit. I remember I wore mechanics gloves for years. Remember them? I know you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually.
What?
See what that is?
What the hell is that? That looks like a mitten.
That's my mechanics gloves right there.
Oh, Jesus.
No, let me get a little bit closer.
Yep.
It does.
I wore them. So. I wore them for years. I like my Moose product, but I've always I always went back to mechanics gloves for some reason.
So what's your preferred brand of exhaust?
Oh God, I've run a lot of pipes. Oh boy, I like the Yosh, but if I could pick any 2-stroke or 4-stroke, clarify that.
Let's
Go
go both.
each. Yeah.
2-stroke. I'm gonna have to go with the Curtis Sparks on a 250R. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
I love my LRDs, but Curtis is just that. It's just that much cooler. 4-stroke, 450 Honda. The Yosh is a really good pipe, but I kind of dig the RP stuff the way it looks.
Okay.
So if you were on a Yamaha, what would you run?
I wouldn't. I'd stay home.
Oh,
I'd run back to the dealership and ask for my money back.
I knew you'd have a good answer.
all right.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred brand of skid plates?
Yes. I've run a lot of different skids in my day. PRM always worked very good, but they've won me over with this plastic stuff. I like the BCC belly skids, which are like a plastic. I've always been an aluminum guy, and I like the plastic. They've won me over with it. But as far as the swing arm skid, I love a full skid. I don't like a sprocket guard and a rotor guard. I don't like that. I'm very old school, full skid. Checo makes a really good one. RJR, PRM used to make good stuff. I'm a full skid. Get that thing protected and just smash the shit out of whatever's in front of you.
Okay. Preferred brand of shocks?
Oh, Custom Axis. I've been on their stuff. I love my Custom Axis. I had some very, very early prototype TTX stuff from Olin's back in the day that worked really, really, really well. But I don't know what their help is like. So remember, it goes back to ease of availability, who supports the sport. And I've always thought Custom Axis was good stuff. And I always seem to find myself coming back. I drift away and I come back. I drift and I come back. So I would have to say Custom Axis.
Okay. Couple more here. Preferred brand of fuel?
Oh, there's a story with that. If you got like 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
I've run a lot of fuel. I've run Renegade. I've run Dragon. I've run Turbo Blues. I've run some VP stuff. And all those fuels work, right? I got a call from Klotz 2 years ago to run their stuff. And I'm not sure if that's like the feather in the hat kind of thing, like I've made it, because Klotz is like, in my opinion, if Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Klotz is like the pinnacle, am I correct, of fuels and lubricants because they've been there for years. And I don't know if they felt bad for the old guy or what, but I could tell you that to me, Klotz has always been like the top, and to have the support that I have from them is really cool. And like I said, I've had good luck with VP. I've had good luck with Dragon, Renegade, all these other brands. But to me, the nostalgia of Klotz, the history they've had with Bill and Yoakley and Smiley and those guys, to me, that is the fuel for me.
Well, I like with you walk down the line, say your pro line, and someone's running Klotz, you can tell it.
I know. I don't know what it is. It's that smell. It's the white. It's the red. I mean, it's ingrained in us that is cool. 250Rs, Klotz Racing Fuel, and Bush Heavy is the coolest shit out there. I'm sorry.
All right. One last question. We'll circle back around to our topic tonight. What's your preferred brand of wheels and tires?
Oh, I've always been a Hyper fan. Always been a Hyper wheel fan for years. I've ran DWTs. I've even ran like the Shamrocks. Now, if we're going to go with cool nostalgia, I'm a Shamrock guy. I'm a DWT Shamrock guy all day long. They are badass. I won a Pro-Am championship on Shamrocks. But Hyper wheels have always been that wheel for me. And as far as a tire, I've run a lot of tires out there. I'm a big Obor fan, but like I said, it all boils down to what you're comfortable on. You might be comfortable on an Obor. You be comfortable on a Maxxis. You might be comfortable in that tire guide you got from Amazon at the garage sale next door. But I can tell you that I really like that new Kraken that's out. That's a bad bitch, and I'm really excited to run that thing. So I'm a hyper by weld. I'm a hyper wheel guy when it comes to being modern, efficient, tough, long lasting. You want a cool looking wheel? You're gonna have to dig for some Shamrocks. I've got a couple sets left, but I don't know if I can let them go.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you going through there. But is there anybody else you'd like to take a second? Maybe we haven't brought up here and let you thank them guys and make sure everybody knows who's helping the Gator out.
Yeah, I definitely, I appreciate you guys having me on. Hopefully that this clears up some questions that people have. Matt had some very good answers and things with this whole podcast, and I've really enjoyed it because it's not something I've ever done. So, we have Obor tires, and that's the whole reason for the podcast is it's about tires. So without them, I wouldn't be on this podcast or really be able to put any traction to the ground. So Obor tires, then we have, Parts Unlimited and Moose Racing. We got Custom Axis and Lone Star. And I don't want to bore everybody with the list, but it's not only one thing that makes a program, right? Whether it be mom and dad or whether it be the companies like I just named, right, that support you, that get you there. It's a whole working effort to make it happen. And without the companies, from the ones that I feel that give the most to the ones that only give like one or two things, you have a spot on my machine, because if you can only give one or two things, and that tells me that that's all you can give, but you still want to support and you still want to help. Mm-hmm. And I love ATV racing. And I know that, 25 is probably going to be tough on some people with some things that happen, but with all the things that we've talked about, I really think there's going to be some positives to middle of end of 25. And if I wouldn't, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I look for numbers to start coming up a little bit. I look for ATVs to start coming back because people are going to have a little bit more money, and not getting into politics, but 25 is going to be fun.
No, I agree. I really appreciate you doing. Oh, hang on one second. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. It's the president.
Yeah.
Okay. I bet it's his wife saying,
no, it's his wife.
See ya. Bye. So I just got a call came in that entry fee's been paid for this year. There's a Ironman entry fee. It's already been paid for the Heartland Challenge this year under the name of Adam McGill. That's someone's sponsor, and the entry fee's paid. So,
dude, look at Matt's face. It went from a smile to now he's like, shit.
Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, it's both of them. Okay, it was both of them. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh my God! You know what we could do?
I drink way too much Buffalo Trace to be coming back for Ironman class.
You know what? It sounds like to me and you are going to be in the same boat, man. We'll just tie with laps. It'll be fine. Nobody will win. We'll just
there we go.
Have a drink bourbon the whole time.
We can just stop at the halfway point and have a drink, and then Andy won't let us back out on the track anymore.
Oh my God, that would be great. I would love it. Yes. Yes. I will see you at the Heartland then. Oh my God. No,
thank you guys so much.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been real. And I appreciate it. I think you guys have definitely helped some people's eyes here, open up to different products, and tonight with the tires, I don't think it could have been said any better than what you guys have described, all the situations, whether it been the pressures, and everything that you guys have talked about here. So I know I, for one, will be going back through and watching it. And that's a fun thing about this podcast. Not all the time does it seem like that most people watch it live, but when you look at the next couple of days, it gets way up there in numbers, people going back and watching it and stuff. Yep. And I think this is one that we're going to see numbers go a lot higher, because there's enough stuff here that I think people are going to go back and watch and listen to you to a couple different times and say, no, this is what they said. There's just enough of that has been said. And I don't think there's enough opportunities for you guys to reach out there like this and help people. So thank you guys very, very much. And to me, it's been one of the funnest ones we've ever had. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Had a blast.
I do too. And just remember, like Andy said, with this, we're super accessible. I'm sure, Matt, I know you've got a Facebook because I've sent you some really rude things on it, right? So if you
Yeah.
have questions, just reach out and ask. We might not get back to you same day, right, Andy, like you said with Bruce, but we see it. So if you have questions about anything that we can help with, I'm here, right? It's part of the job, and I love the sport. And if I could help advance a rider or somebody with some questions and help them win a race, and guess what? I had a part of that kid or that rider winning that race. So with me being able to help and answer questions, the same with Matt, I'm sure, Matt, you love to help as much as you can, right?
Yep.
So
100%.
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to reach out. There's no dumb questions, only there's no dumb answers either. There's dumb questions and dumb answers. So ask a dumb question, you get a dumb answer. So keep the answer to like the business.
But Adam, I always say I'm into wrestling and racing. That's my 2 seasons. How many sports have we ever heard what you just said on? How many sports can you call up your guy that's, the pro, the guy that's the top of the food chain? Exactly.
0.
So once again, that is our sport speaking at the highest point, making it a family sport, making a chance to actually listen and learn from you guys. So I'm telling you, man, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot tell you how much I respect that and appreciate that from both of you guys. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks for doing the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks,
I really appreciate it. You guys take care.
We'll get you a Hawkeye shirt sent.
Hawkeye. All right, buddy.
Cool.
One thing to clarify here. I think that they talked about it, the contingency for Obor, but it's a cash contingency. I don't think that I just want to make sure that that's clarified. They're the only sponsor ever I've and I don't know how many years have done a cash contingency.
I don't remember anybody ever doing it.
So
Just
throwing a number out there, double A, of course, you got $200 if you win a double A class and have Obors. And what was it for a complete set? 380, $400. Throw that up. Yeah. $400 roughly. All right. You're making half of it back by winning one double A race. Or let's just throw out there, first year's $50. I mean, $50 cash if I go out there as a first year racer running Obors. Just throwing it out there, not trying to push their tires, but I threw the contingency information out there in the comments. Check it out. I mean, it goes all the way down to kids.
Yeah, no, it's a heck of an opportunity, that's for sure. But man, was that pretty cool tonight? I mean, listen to them guys go back and forth, and the way that they are so willing. I mean, I know we talked about that at the end, but I mean, you've had youth come up through there. I've had youth come up through there.
Yeah.
To have the opportunity for people, and I mean this is one thing that I just have always loved about this sport is we have somebody, we're talking about Adam, right now, but you look at our pros that we have, and if they go look, your same kid that, is out there watching the NFL this last Sunday. How many of those guys can you truly say that, man, if my kid grows up and acts like him and treats people like him, I'm going to feel like I did a good job, and we see those people we think, and then we see the issues that they're having off the field and, and all this and that. To have a sport like we've had and been so blessed to be a part of for so long, and have people like Adam McGill come on here and be willing to help and talk to people and say, hey, text me. He just said that openly, email me, message me, and I'd be more than willing. We see that time and time again with him out there on the line, with the kids and walking the track and just kids following him and spending time. And it's just amazing and so refreshing to be in a sport like this, that we can have that for our youth. Man.
Yeah, and I was jotting down some notes here. They're kind of forming a baseline. So, like, as we work hopefully through these next 6 episodes, we've got the first 2 down. Hopefully, we'll kind of become a baseline. We've heard about tire pressures. They shared their thoughts with us on what we should maybe run as a baseline, and then adjust from there based off maybe track conditions or our own riding ability or skills. But I think I wrote this down. I need to go back and listen to it, because Adam said you run the best that you have, not the best you can buy. And it's probably not word for word what he said. I'll go back and listen to it, but that's a good quote. And I think that sums up what this mini series is about and what our goal is with it. So
absolutely. So do I have this right? We take next week off. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to give you a week off, or I'm going to give myself a week off here next week. Still working on some other things, but the next episode is all about protection. So we have a guest already lined up. Kind of want to give a preview what that's about.
Yeah, Weston Rainwater from DRW is going to be on here, and we're going to be talking about something that I think is we've talked about the machine, we've talked about the tires. When you get into racing, or even if you've been in here for a long time, the machine's number one. You're always asking, what am I setting on? What's touching the ground? That's very, very important. Mm-hmm. But when people call me all the time, they get into sport, Chris, I tell them, I said, look, don't worry about power. Don't worry about motor. Don't worry about all this stuff. You got to protect what you're running first to make sure that I have the reliability to get to the end. You got to finish the race. I've never given a trophy. You've never given an award out for whoever's leading the first lap or the second, the third, or the fourth. It's who's leading at the end. In order to do that, how many times have we seen guys where it's getting pulled in? Oh man, he was the leader. How many times have you seen the leader getting pulled in of a class or something, and you come to find out, and he broke a chain, or he broke a chain snapped and broke the motor, all this stuff that happens, it's amazing. So that protection, it's so different than if you're in motocross or something, what we go through and taking on all different kinds of terrains in that one race in that 2 hours is crazy. Most people don't even ever realize what they go through out there. And that third number or part of getting involved, I think, is the protection of the machine and saving you the money, not making you faster, but like we talked earlier, an insurance policy, and making sure that machine that you spend all the time and money and effort on is making it to the end. So it's a huge deal. So Weston develops all of his own products, designs every one. We're going to be talking a lot about that, and I think it's going to be great for everybody to hear.
So sorry here. I'm just checking out the questionnaires, because we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. Just want to throw it out there again. It's the racer's chance to be heard. So there are the ATV and UTV questionnaires have questions at the very end that are rules, suggestions, recommendations for next year. I am looking right now. I have only see 20 responses for ATVs and only 11 responses for UTVs. So the response is pretty low. So, just going to throw that out there, that we put the time frame for voting to be considered until I'll put out there until next Sunday, and we'll cut it off. That way we can do what we have to do behind the scenes, based on the responses and the voting options. I think that we have to get with the subcommittees of each group and go and have some discussions based on those responses. So that's kind of our tight turnaround time, so we can be transparent and we can get everything done. We want to have everything done before the banquet. Our goal is to try to have it done before the first of the year, so people are aware of what's expected.
Yep.
So there's my soapbox for the night. You have anything to add?
I don't. I think everything's been covered. I think it was a good night.
Yeah.
Wish everyone a happy holidays and hope you have some safe travels, Chris. So
yeah. So all right, buddy. Well, thanks for those that are still sticking around until New Year's. A good way to start 2025 off. We're going to actually have a podcast on the 1st. So till then, Enjoy. Be safe. We'll see you next time.